Seven Mary Three's journey from college band to mainstream success is a compelling story of talent, perseverance, and the inevitable compromise of the music industry. Formed in 1992 by two college students with a shared love for rock and literature, not to mention the same first name, the band quickly built a grassroots following through relentless touring and self-produced records. Their breakthrough came with the hit single Cumbersome, which skyrocketed onto radio playlists and charts, catapulting their album American Standard to platinum status. The LA Times wrote about today's group, the members of the rock band Seven Mary Three belong to a minority of young rockers, those willing to acknowledge that the road to commercial success is paved with compromise. It's not often that a rock and roll band embraces those kinds of labels. In today's video, let's talk about the group's major label debut. This story was a subscriber request, and if you guys have suggestions for topics you'd like to see me cover, let me know in the comments below. Before we get started, be sure to hit the bell notification icon and put all notifications on. I hear from a lot of my subscribers that they don't even get notifications when I post my videos. I would greatly appreciate if you guys did that. Seven Mary Three formed in 1992 when two college students with the same first name, Jason, met midway through their junior year while attending the College of William and Mary in Virginia. They were vocalist and rhythm guitarist Jason Ross and lead guitarist Jason Pollock, who met through a mutual friend. Pollock recalled to the Orange County Register, one day Jason suggested we get together and jam because we both had started playing guitar. I heard him sing and right away knew we'd be playing together for a long time. Both men were born in Kansas, with Pollock moving to Virginia later on and having a TV-free childhood. Telling the Deseret News, I listened to all my parents' classic rock albums, the radio, really anything that sounded melodic and good. I also went to see a lot of local folky mountain music. I learned to play at college and realized this is what I wanted to do. Ross, for his part, was a pretty shy and introverted kid who was jealous of his friends forming bands. Feeling too shy and introverted, he spent his youth engrossed in Allen Ginsberg books. He told the Winston-Salem Journal, I was the frustrated kid in the corner who watched everybody else play guitar. I've probably lived 80% of my life in my own imagination. I was always on the outside, a dreamer, not a doer. Ross took a liking to U2, The Police, Queen, as well as REM. Both Ross and Pollock pursued degrees in the arts. By this point in time, both men hadn't been playing guitar for very long, with Ross telling Ear of Newt, Jason started playing when he was a sophomore in college, so I guess he's into his fourth year playing now. I had a dusty old guitar sitting in the closet, and I pretty much learned everything from him, so neither of us have been playing for very long. Both of the Jasons not only bonded over their love of music, but also their fandom over 80s TV shows like Chips. They were also a fan of Gabriel Garcia Marquez novels as well. For his English degree, Ross was able to get half of his college credit by writing short stories and poetry, and it was these writings that actually inspired a lot of the lyrical content on Seven Mary Three's debut record. The duo began writing songs, but Ross was nervous about getting on stage and performing in front of people. He told Rolling Stone, I'd always kind of wanted to perform, but I was too much of a coward to get on stage. Jason was able to push me into it. Within several months of writing their first song, the pair performed initially as an acoustic duo before they added bassist Casey Daniel and drummer Giti Khalsa. Daniel was actually an old high school buddy of Ross, and they began playing local coffee shops and clubs, doing their best initially to avoid the highly lucrative college party circuit that would have largely forced them to play covers in their sets. The band's name was inspired from a code name from Larry Wilcox's unit on the TV show Chips. Pollock admitted about the band's name, there's no great significance or anything. We were just tired of trying to think of a cool name. Seven Mary Three soon built a pretty big local following. On the strength of their original compositions, the band was able to gain a grassroots following in both Virginia and in Florida. The band used to drive down to Florida on the weekends to play a handful of shows, and the band also shared some roots down there as well, since Ross's parents moved the family there when he was 10. Ross remarked to Rolling Stone, what they didn't know is that most of the people were high school friends of Casey's and mine when referring to the large audiences in the state. It was during this period the band released and produced their first record, Churn, on their own label, 5 Spot Records. They estimated that they spent about $20,000 on both the production and marketing of the record. Seven Mary Three pressed about 5,000 copies, mostly through funds they made off their concerts, with the album actually landing in some Best Buy stores in Orlando and about 10 independent chains between Williamsburg and Orlando. The band credited their college educations with giving them some business acumen. Chris Bear, who owned an independent record store in Williamsburg, told Billboard magazine, "We cater to the William and Mary audience. Good bands that tour in this college market can build up an incredible following." Dave Matthews did it. Mayer would admit that Churn was one of the store's top 10 biggest selling records of 1994, believe it or not, even outselling Pearl Jam, and it was the song Cumbersome that the band owed much of their success to. She calls me Goliath and I wear the David mask. It was the band's friend, as well as their manager, Daryl Massaroni, who had slipped a copy of their debut record to the Orlando radio station WJRR, who up until this point were known for breaking Collective Soul when they played a demo version of their song Shine. WJRR started spinning the song Cumbersome in January of 1995, and every time the song was played, the phone lines lit up. I guess the stones are coming too fast for her now. Now, it's important to note this was the original 6-minute version of the song. Steve Robertson, who worked at WJRR as the assistant program director and midday personality, told Billboard, "When I first heard Cumbersome, I said to my promotions director that these guys are the next Collective Soul. I got the same feeling from this song that I got from Collective Soul's Shine. We started playing it, and after about 100 spins, we started testing it, and it came back in the top 10 and was pretty consistent after that." According to Ross, the song was about human relationships and how they can sometimes sour. In fact, their whole first album had several overarching themes. 7Mary3's music was inspired by the same anxieties as the members' Generation X peers felt. Ross admitted to the LA Times, "Our parents have been through divorces and it's had a tremendous impact on us. I think that often our ideals of the perfect family unit or any romantic relationship are just that, ideals, and we love more in our minds than in reality. Can you be faithful? Can you be everything that's desired of you? Are our expectations simply too high? It's very difficult, but essential part of the human condition to try and understand." These anxieties and trials showed up in the tracks like Devil Boy, My, as well as Margaret. Some songs like Water's Edge, though, were fictional in nature, based on a dream sequence, as Ross told Billboard. We'll talk more about that song later on. I can't go down to the water's edge. I didn't do it. Apart from their talent, of course, luck was also an important part of 7Mary3's story. Ross told Billboard, "You don't often hear a local rock band on commercial radio. That was definitely good old luck." That luck also passed on to their tours, as during their unsigned years, the band landed some pretty prime spots, opening for Live, Matthew Sweet, and Toadies. Things even came full circle for the band when Ross admitted to Spin how he and a friend went to see Live on tour when they were promoting Mental Jewelry in 1991. Ross told Spin, "Me and my friend came down from Tampa to see Live, and man, were we blown away. At the end of the show, Ed," referring to Ed Kowalczyk, reached out and pulled me and my friend on stage. 3 years later, we're selling out 10,000-seater arenas and opening for Live. The only reason they opened for Live is because the group's manager sent a tape of their first album to Live's management, and Live's opening act for that tour canceled. Following the success of Cumbersome on local radio, 7Mary3 played a showcase in May of 95 for 9 record labels and 3 publishing companies. The band soon inked a deal with indie label Mammoth Records, who had a partnership with Atlantic. Mammoth was based out of Carborough, North Carolina, and was a pretty small company. They were so small that the CEO would hand deliver the single Cumbersome to radio stations himself. The label was also quite close to the new music mecca at the time of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Mammoth at the time had Juliana Hatfield on the roster, as well as Squirrel Nut Zippers, who you guys might remember from that period of time. But all the things you tried to hide will be revealed on the other side. To entice 7 Mary 3 to sign with them, the label promised to make the band their highest priority. So, believe it or not, the band signed their first record deal a week after Ross and Pollock graduated from college. About a year and a half later, they had a hit record. Mammoth's whole marketing approach for their bands was what they referred to as a grassroots effort. They would usually call Pacific Coast One Stop and Simi Valley the nation's third largest distributor of music and video-based products. The label wanted to know which records were selling well and then get Atlantic to help out with promotions. Atlantic used the same method to see which indie bands were worth signing. And it was through this approach they found groups like Hootie and the Blowfish. The band also relocated to Florida after Cumbersome started to pick up airplay in the state. Mammoth opted to re-release the group's debut record, albeit under a new name, American Standard. The label also had the group re-record most of the songs while throwing in a few new numbers. Ross told the Tampa Tribune, "We had stripped the songs down totally and built them up piece by piece." The album was given a new title to make the record sound more palatable to rock radio, with Ross telling Ear of Newt, "I think that the title has begun to take on all different kinds of origination. Somebody said there's a toilet manufacturer here in the States that's American Standard, and then there's the American Standard Stratocaster. I think we're just trying to come up with something that kind of embodied the ethos of Manifest Destiny and all that, kind of that 1800s pushing out on the frontier kind of vibe." Both Ross and Pollock received producing credits on the record, along with veteran producer Tom Morris. While the group acknowledged that they had made compromises after signing to a record label to become more commercial, Ross told the LA Times, "We basically produced the record. I realize there are compromises to be made, but if you can keep your head about it, you can transcend it." The label issued a 4-minute version of Cumbersome as the lead single. It received heavy play on MTV and peaked at number 1 on the Billboard Mainstream Rock Tracks chart and number 7 on the Modern Rock Tracks chart, and was even a crossover hit, peaking at number 39 on the Billboard Hot 100. Too light, too black, or too white, too wrong, or too right, today or tonight. One of the other singles issued that was successful was Water's Edge. It's a song dealing with the abduction of a young girl, while also pointing out how society is quick to look away when someone is being taken advantage of by an authority figure. My was also issued as a single. Both songs were top 20 hits on the Mainstream Rock Tracks chart. At the end of the day, American Standard sold over 1.1 million copies and was certified platinum in the States. The Winston-Salem Journal wrote that the band's lyrical observations of the human condition drew similarities to groups like the Tragically Hip and Midnight Oil, with Ross adding, "I believe that every man eventually digs his own grave. My stories just watch people wander down the path of life, either to greatness or to folly." They were also lumped in with Eastern college rockers Hootie and the Blowfish, as well as Dave Matthews Band. Large part of the comparisons also came from the band's DIY approach, with Ross telling Rolling Stone, "I think the reason bands like Hootie, Dave Matthews, and to some degree ours have done as well as they have is that there's a work ethic and a willingness to give to the audience." But the band wasn't without their criticisms. Some critics frequently compared their sound to that of other popular 90s alternative groups like Stone Temple Pilots and Pearl Jam. But Ross handled such criticisms with grace, telling the LA Times, "The comparisons used to upset me, but I've convinced myself to be secure in my own identity. As a young band, it's part of paying your dues, and you've got to survive your influences." The comparisons were also a bit unfair and lazy, as the band was more influenced by classic and southern rock than, say, the punk and metal scenes of the 70s and 80s that a lot of the bands of the alternative rock and grunge movement drew from. With the success of groups like 7 Mary 3, they were being hailed as a new breed of rock called post-grunge. Ross told an interviewer, "To me, the term post-grunge is kind of funny. When 7 Mary 3 came out, all of the bands who created grunge had kind of turned on the establishment. When we came out, there was a really big backlash of bands that sounded too similar." 7 Mary 3 released several more records throughout their career, but none of which matched the success of American Standard. They called it quits in 2012 before reuniting a couple of years ago in 2021. The band, though, has been long pigeonholed as being a one-hit wonder of the 90s. their drummer Giti Khalsa referred to Cumbersome as a blessing and a curse, adding, "It definitely was the beginning of our success. We were able to sell a lot of records because of that song and a couple others on that first record. But at the same time, with each record that we've made, it's like the monkey on our back." Khalsa also stated that people who went to see the band's live shows frequently left after they performed Cumbersome. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in Rock and Roll Your Stories. Take care.